Coming up is a wonderful interview opportunity with a gentleman by the name of Bart Caylor. He's written a couple books. He's all about higher ed. What is higher ed? We're fixing to find out, as a lot of people say. So stay tuned. I think you're going to like this interview, this conversation with Bart Caylor. And before we get started, I want to give special thanks to InteraWorks, my sponsor, who not only is just InteraWorks a great company, but you think about all the things you can do to be a better person, to be a better leader. They have those tools. It's called Effective Edge, where you can get more organized because when you are more organized, you are more powerful, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you. So stay tuned for my conversation with Bart Caylor. Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aden coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, where I know Bart and I are live. You may not be alive, I mean, not alive, but you know what I mean. Anyway, Bart, tell us a little bit about yourself, why you're here, and what do you do?
So what I do specifically in marketing is I work with higher education schools and universities, colleges and universities to help them recruit students or recruit donors. So really any income in the house, I'm trying to help them with that. And so I really have a background not only in higher ed, but also throughout my career, I've worked with major brands like Motorola and RCA and a lot of healthcare and consumer electronics products. And so I've taken a lot of what I've learned in the marketplace and applied it into what I'm doing now in higher education.
And if someone had heard higher ed for the first time, obviously they're not in
Right.
higher ed, or they would know, but what does that really mean to you?
So colleges and universities, or what many people call post-secondary education. So after you graduate high school, what do you do after that? Do you go and get some training? Do you go to a vocational school? Do you go to traditional four-year college or university? And so most people can understand that, whether you've been at college before or maybe you've got some children that are going to college or at that age. A lot of what I do is on the side of helping schools market and message that to students. And so why would they choose your school over a different school? Why? And
Right.
if you've got college or high school age students, you know that you start getting a lot of mail when they're sophomores. And
Sure.
so I help schools understand how to recruit those students and what's the best way to market to them and their parents, because right now parents are making up a big part of that decision-making process. And so that's part of my business.
Yeah, so you're appealing to the mind and the heart of a what you just said, sophomore, junior, etc., and also the psyche of the parents. Now,
Yeah.
psychologically, do the parents really make the decision? Is it the check that they have to write? Is it more about, well, I went to Rutgers. I think you should go to Rutgers. I
Right.
mean,
It's a
tell me a
little
little
bit of
bit about,
everything.
okay, yeah. Because my son's a freshman right now, sophomore next year, obviously, and we're talking about all this. And I believe it's a really cool family dynamic, especially if the mom and dad who created the kid aren't living together anymore,
Right.
divorced, etc. So you have two other influences, but tell the audience a little bit about your interest in getting into this line of work because you're really impacting and inspiring a lot of lives on a daily basis, whether you know it or not, right?
Yeah, the reason I really was drawn into working in higher education, I'm a first generation college student, and what that means is that no one else in my family had ever been to college. I was the first one who ever decided to do that, and I saw how the trajectory of my life changed from that of my parents and my siblings who did not go to college. And when you start a trajectory, it seems very similar, but when you go out over years, it's a vast difference. And I'm very grateful
Exactly.
for the sacrifices that my parents made as blue collar laborers and a secretary and a factory worker to see that I was able to get an education, and it made a profound impact in my life and the impact of my children and my family, and it will for generations. And I recognize that as a huge story that a lot of people have. And so early in my career when I was working on the latest cell phone from Motorola and the latest television from RCA and the latest school, I
Right.
got more excited about the work I was doing with the schools than the gadgetry that I was helping market and sell. And so I decided about 20 years ago that I really wanted to focus more on what was bringing me passion, what was getting me excited about seeing lives changed. And so that's why I dedicated the rest of my career in higher ed.
Well, you're talking to a first generation college student as well.
Yep.
And you're right, it changed my trajectory. Brooks, my son, and I, we talk about the experience of college
Yeah.
as much as the education you
Right.
get in college and the friends you make. And by the way, thank you for saying much more, much more intentional and purposeful in what you're doing now than working for Motorola. And again, whether it's Motorola or AT&T, it doesn't matter.
Anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I see that and I sense that in you when we first met. And then you wrote a couple books. Tell us about the first one. And I always ask the why, Bart. Why did you want to write this book? I know it's about audience. I believe it's not
Right.
about money. It's about a message, but tell us the why behind it.
Yeah. So my first book is titled "Chasing Mission Fit: How to Fill Your Institution with Students That Will Be Excited." Basically, is what the premise is. And the reason I wrote that is that over the course of my career, as I've gotten older, I've realized that I have some opinions about things, and I have some best practices that I've come across, and some ways that I think are. I don't think it's necessarily a special sauce or anything unique, but I've observed some things that tend to work, and so I had an itch for a while to write a book, and I just didn't have the time. I'm a busy professional, and I had an opportunity to meet a young woman that was a ghostwriter, and she convinced me that, hey, this isn't cheating. This is actually something that a lot of very busy executives do. And she told me about Stephen Covey and Seven Habits of Highly Successful People, and I was like, I did not realize that was ghostwritten. And so she helped me get what was in my brain onto paper, and it was a great experience. It gave me the opportunity to uh, earn some trust and some authority with my audience. But I think what I really tried to do was to create almost a manual for potential clients to be able to understand, and even some of the clients that I work with a large range of schools, and so
Sure.
certainly schools that people would recognize the names of, all the way down to I do a lot of work in faith-based schools, and so I've got some small Bible colleges that they need to recruit 50 students, and that's going to take care of their year. And so, but they can't afford the big time fees that other schools might need, or the
Sure.
projects that they might need. And so this book was, and I've joked with a lot of people, this was my love letter to a lot of those small schools on how to actually do the work and to think differently than what they see driving down the roads, and they see the big state schools with their billboards and their ads on TV and think, oh, if we just raised some money and did billboards, we'll be all set. And it's like, no, there's a lot of ways to do it differently. And so I really wanted to help schools understand, and actually businesses too, that once you articulate clearly who you are and what you're about, you're going to naturally draw the people that need that. So the more that you can articulate your brand, the more that you can message that clearly, and the more that you can make courageous decisions based on that framework, the more successful that you can be. And when I started my business, I was not focused entirely on higher ed. I felt like I needed to pay the bills. And so I had some higher ed clients, I had some nonprofits, I had a few businesses that I was doing work with, but I never was able to focus in specifically on what I wanted to do, which was the higher ed. And I remember having a conversation at the time, and I was told, you know what, you need to just fire all of your non-higher ed clients, and
Hmm.
just force yourself to focus on that. And that was a hard pill to swallow, but I courageously did that and started writing, doing a lot of blog posts and a lot of LinkedIn. This was 16 years ago, and that really started. The more I niched down, the more I was clear with who I was and what I was about, the more clients that wanted that came to me. And so
Hmm.
most of my business today is word of mouth, and it is referral based, and that's because people know exactly who I am and what I'm about and what I'm doing, and that's been one of the things that I've tried to articulate in this book.
Yeah, you mentioned faith-based universities and colleges. Shout out Texas Lutheran College
Yep.
in Seguin, Texas. Almost went there. And there was another Lutheran college I applied to, and then I got this letter from a buddy of mine back in the day. I think you can understand way before texts and emails.
Oh yeah.
We did this weird thing. We wrote letters to each other with our hands. Uh, and so he had moved from Albuquerque to Denver. His name's Paul Shingle, and he said, where are you sending your SATs?" And I told him, he said, "Well, what about Fort Lewis College in Durango?" And I remember writing back saying, "I'm not going to a military college." And he said, "No." He said, "No, no, no. It's an old fort up on the hill,
Yeah.
and
Great school.
it is. It was fantastic. By the way, if you don't have contacts there, let me know. They market themselves really around the experience.
Hmm.
And the joke was, ski Fort Lewis, by the way, get an education because there's purgatory up the road.
That's
But
right.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
In fact, I stayed an extra semester just so I could ski and play another semester of basketball. But anyway, um, shout out Danielle Howard, who,
Yeah.
and let me say that again. Shout out Danielle Howard, who is the person who has helped you ghostwrite your book and made the wonderful introduction to
Yeah.
from Greg to Bart. By the way, one of my best friends in high school is named Bart, and until
Okay.
Danielle said you need to meet this guy Bart, I thought there's I've never met another Bart. So, and
There's
now,
not very many of us out there. Bart Simpson helped to get the name out, but that's
oh,
about
he's
it.
famous. He's famous. So you also said a lot about your clients, and but help me understand the why of your clients and how it matches with your why. And maybe you've said it, but be really intentional for not only me but the audience, because the why we're here, Bart, in my humble opinion, not only as an executive coach and a dad and a husband, but I always lead with why. And by the
Yeah.
way, shout out Simon Zenek. When I first started Aden Leadership, I fell in love with this guy. I fell
Oh
in
yeah.
love with the why we're here and the golden circle. It was so simple. And maybe that's how my mind works. Anyway, tell us how your why aligns with your client's why.
Yeah, so my why, and I kind of already told the story a little bit about the way that my life had changed, the
Sure.
drastic change of that, not only because of education. I think that education does that for a lot of people. I mean, that is why the academy goes back, into the Middle Ages and even earlier, back to Socrates and other places. But I think that for me, especially being a man of faith and having that part of my life as well, I am drawn to some of the faith-based institutions because not only are they looking at how to change the mind and the outcome on the person, but also what's the formation of that person look like? What does that, mind, body, and soul formation look like? And so that's something that's been dear to me beyond my higher ed, just personally. And so being able to align with schools that are on mission to be able to help
Yeah.
students with that transformation is something I get really excited about. It's something that I've experienced in my own life personally. And so that's where I have decided that that's really where my sweet spot is. I probably do 70 to 80% of my work within that realm. And
Cool.
then certainly I do a lot of work outside of that realm with what I would consider, secular schools or schools that might not have that faith component, because I think that education is still a passion of mine, and I want to see that succeed wherever it can be done.
Yeah, as you are on Servant Leadership podcast, I would ask, when you hear the phrase servant leadership,
Mhm.
what immediately comes to your heart?
What comes to my heart is, the description in Scripture where Jesus is washing the disciples' feet. That has been
Hmm.
a one of the campuses that I have known for a long time. It was a neighbor campus of mine that I went to in Indiana, Taylor University. Um, Whenever a student graduates, they hand them a diploma and a servant's towel. And the
Hmm.
idea is that as Jesus washed the disciples' feet, we are instructed to serve others. And so they have a towel that has the school logo on it that they're given. And I know so many alumni that's sitting in their office prominently. It's on their bookcase to remind them of the importance of servant leadership. It's not something that's for fanfare. It's not something for, being noticed. It's something that happens in the quiet, and many people don't even know it, but it impacts the lives of others. I'm currently reading a book called Theo of Golden, which is a wonderful book about servant leadership and has so many different layers. It's a novel, but it's a really good example of that. And so when I hear servant leadership, I think of being selfless and doing some things that are kind of in the quiet that people don't know but make an impact.
Selfless, absolutely. And I describe it to my leadership clients, my people who are trying to become better leaders. It's all about serving first, leading second.
Hmm.
Serving first, parenting second. I mean, you if it yes, it's about you. I will always say this. Leadership starts with you as a human being. Who are you being? And also then once you are right, then and only then, in my humble opinion, can you go out and serve others. And when
Yep,
you do because you want to, Bart, not because you have to.
that's
And this
exactly
is a
right.
big distinction for me is it's I don't have to be a good dad. I want to be a good dad. And if you saw my post on LinkedIn, it was about I asked my then probably 8-year old Brooks, how can I go from being a good dad to a great dad? And he shared it with me, and I recorded it, and he wrote it down, and you can hardly read his handwriting back then, but it's something that I ask all young dads to ask their kids whenever you believe that conversation could really mean something, and then listen, because
Yeah,
they'll say the silliest things, but it's important to them for you to hear this.
yeah,
But I don't think an 8 or 9 or even a 10-year old is going to stop you when you have your cell phone in your hand, you're driving the car or you're walking around and then they're going to say, "Hey dad, do you want to know how you can be a good dad to a great dad?" So you have to make the time or you
yeah,
get to make the time.
yeah,
And again, some of the distinctions I've learned from others, Steve Hardison, Steve Chandler, Steve McGee, they all help me with why are we really here?
yeah.
And what are you going to be remembered by? So, before we get into your second book, why I say that is I want to ask you this question. What do you believe is going to be on Bart Caylor's tombstone? What are the
It's
people who then are going to outlive you? What are they going to say about you and have engraved there? What do you think it's going to say?
it's funny that you say that because I was reading an article the other day about challenging me to write my own epitaph so
Hmm,
that I would have that ready, so that I would live it out. And what I pray that they would write is that he was someone that loved and someone that served and someone that um, was trusted.
beautiful.
I put trust at a very high level, and I have it on my LinkedIn profile, trusted partner. And I debated on that because it's something that it goes back to that servant leadership. I mean, we don't try to put servant leader on our profiles because that's something that I'm not trying to advertise. But
Right.
at the same time, uh, I recognize that trust is something that's earned. Just like, how do I go from being a good dad to a great dad? Even asking that question comes from years of trust building and
Yeah.
serving well before anything else. And um, so I hope that those are some of the things that are put on my tombstone.
Yeah. Trusted advisor, partner, and teacher. And I hear teacher in you. And again, I hear more teacher than pastor, and I love that. And I wish, and I mean this honestly, that more people would slow down and teach without without any thought of they need to come back and tell me I was a great teacher, or they need to come back and say thank you. You don't know. And if you serve the people that are connected to you or in your inner circle, as I call them, and fill that circle up with names and then realize, okay, yes, it's about you and now it's about them, but how many people in their inner circle are they now going to be uniquely different because of you? And you'll
Yeah.
never know.
No.
Oh, anyway, serve without needing to be thanked. So tell us about your second book, obviously the most recent one, and why should we read it?
The second one I wrote was called Know What You Don't Know. It's what every higher ed leader needs to understand about marketing. And so and this
Hmm,
came out of an exact need. I was working with a lot of schools as I published Chasing Mission Fit. More schools started asking for my advice. I have a podcast, and so my business had increased. And what I continually found was that I would work with leaders, presidents, leaders of vice presidents of enrollment or marketing, and I would start asking them that sometimes they would ask me to look at the marketing budget to help them make decisions. Many times they needed to either make some cuts or adjust the budget. And I started asking questions, and what I realized is that many times those leaders didn't know the answers to the questions, nor did they even understand the questions I was asking. In one instance, I was working with a president, and small school, very small school, that was spending $1 million a year on cable advertising, and it was by far the largest line item in their bill or in their budget. And I asked, I said, tell me a little bit about this cable advertising. Are you doing a lot of cable ads? And they said, oh, no, no. They're the ones that are doing our pay-per-click ads. They, when you go to Google and you click on the ad, and I said, oh,
Oh,
okay. Well, how's that working out? Oh, it's going great. We get like 350 leads a month. And I said, are those leads or are those clicks? Same thing, right? It's no different, is it? I said, oh, there's a big difference. And so we sat down with their vendor and
wow.
understood that no, those were not clicks; they were leads. That was a surprise to the administration. Where do they go when they click? Oh, we just throw them on the homepage. So no strategy at all. Basically, we looked over 3 years of data, and they had one student that they could attribute back to this campaign
Wow.
that signed up for something. And so that was $3 million that was spent without understanding anything to do with it. And so what
Mm.
I recognized is that there were many, many areas within a business or higher education where decisions are being made just because we're either afraid to ask the question, we don't want to look dumb.
Whoa, whoa, hang on a minute. Are you saying that intelligent human beings that know everything are afraid to ask questions because they might look interested in learning something different?
It,
Sarcasm. I got it. But I love it because that's what, if we were just a little bit more curious,
yeah,
Bart, and instead of, do I look okay? Am I going to sound good? No, no, just ask a question.
yeah,
And by the way, what did we ask our mom and dad and uncles and teachers when we were 3, 4, 5 years old? What did we ask? What word?
why, how,
Why? Why?
yeah,
Why are you holding the flashlight like this? Why do you want me to go? I mean, how else did we learn?
right,
And you want to really infuse higher ed with something that is going to dramatically change. Ask them to not be so freaking serious and focused on just looking good. What about, hey, we're curious about what you want to achieve when you come to school. Oh, by
right,
the way, that's ROI too. Boom. I don't
yeah.
know. I'm not a marketing guy. I've sold things my whole life, but I'm very inquisitive.
Right, and
And
I think that's the key is
dang it.
if you are and that's one of the things I do a lot of AI training too, and that's one of the first things that we talk about is a mindset shift of moving from fear to curiosity.
Thank you.
I think that it's so true in AI, it's so true in everything. When we're afraid to look dumb, when we're afraid that we should know the answer, when we're afraid to ask why, that's gonna cause so many problems for so many people. And so that's where moving to what you're saying, curiosity and what we talk about in our training, that's why I wrote the book. It's like one, be courageous and be okay with who you are and being able to ask why. And then also here's some list of questions just to get you up to speed so you have a little bit of an understanding of what digital marketing is, what websites are, what copywriting is, so that you can ask intelligent questions or at least get the conversation started.
If you have more time, the third point I wanted to discuss something you just brought up. When did you be? I think you call yourself an AI junkie. When did you become a junkie or start using, so to speak? And why? Why do you really want people to understand this? Because a lot of people are unknowing, therefore they're afraid,
Right.
or they're using it and now they're paranoid. So help, I don't know, talk to the audience of a small business owner and then talk to perhaps the head of marketing that's being told, we don't want any of our calls being, watched over by any AI.
I think the reason I got into AI is the same reason I got into social media and the internet and other things. I've been on the front edge of every major technology since the late 80s. I'm old enough now that I've seen it all. Trust me when I see those Instagram posts about, oh, I bet the 90s were so great. They weren't much different than now. It's just
Yeah,
it was a different time. But so I've always been curious. And so when the internet came out, I remember I was 2 years into my career. I went to my boss at the time and said, hey, I think this World Wide Web thing might be something that designers and marketers ought to know about. And he assured me it was a fad, not to worry about it. And then went and sold a website. I had to figure out how to do it. And so I've always been curious enough to understand that maybe there's something
sure.
here, and then usually got thrown into something or bit off more than I could chew and had to figure it out. December of 22, I'd heard about this thing called Chat GPT that everybody was talking about. It was on the news. It was the fastest adopted technology ever. I was like, I have no idea what this is. So I went on Google and typed it in and started playing with it. I got a free account and I was like, what's this like? And I heard somebody say, you could make it sound like Yoda. And I was like, well, I'll have it I'll just, the first prompt I ever did is talk to me like you're Yoda. And
Oh,
it
wow.
started talking like Yoda. And I was like, this is crazy. And then I started realizing, well, if it can do that, maybe it can do this. And so I started playing with it. And because I was curious and back to your thought, the best way to learn something is to act like you're 3 or 4 again and just start playing and not worrying about if you're doing it right. And so I started playing with AI and I did my first presentation 2 months later about AI. I was at a conference and I had a packed room. It was like, they had planned for maybe 10 people would come and there were 50 people packed in this room because everybody was hearing about it, but nobody understood it. And so I did a presentation on what I was seeing and the different types of things that you could do with it.
Sure.
And then I realized that people need to learn about this. And so I hosted a summit that summer where I did an online summit and I brought in experts that I had seen in my vertical to help teach it. And if you go back and look at those, it's pretty rudimentary and it's pretty
Sure.
raw. But we had a lot of people come and start learning it. And what I've realized is that once you can get past the fear of it and realize that you've got some curiosity, and then once you can get past the idea that you are in control of it as far as it being a tool and a collaborator as opposed to a threat,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that it can first make things more efficient for you.
Yep.
Then it can enhance your abilities. So if you've got domain expertise, you can actually be a better writer, a better designer, a better leader, whatever it is by the enhancement it can do. And then if you're a business owner or you lead an organization, you can amplify what your organization's doing by those things. And so that's really what we're doing. I try to treat the tools agnostically in a way so that whether you're using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, I don't really care. It's the thinking behind it and
Yeah.
recognizing that it's a collaboration with a I don't know how you want to say it, a tool. The more that you see it as another person, the better results you get. Not because you're, being polite to it and the overlords will look over you when they take over.
Right.
It's more about the idea that you are in your mind seeing it as an associate or as an intern, and you're being better in the way that you're articulating the instructions and the way that you are communicating with it, that you're going to get a lot better results. And so I have been fascinated with how quickly it has changed, and there's been more change in the past 9 weeks than the first 3 years that I was engaged with it.
Hmm.
And so I'm just encouraging people to, if you haven't played with it, play with it. Have it work on your meal plans for the week. Have it do some help you with your golf game by analyzing a video of you doing your stroke. I mean, there's a lot of things that it can do that people are surprised to realize that, oh, I thought it was just for cleaning up my email and making me sound smarter. There's a lot of application in any industry that you can do with it.
Yeah. Make yourself a smarter and a better collaborator. You had me at that, and there is some paranoia associated with it, and
Yeah,
we
it's not going to be a savior by any means, but
no. Well, and before AI was even here, what did we do? We actually looked things up in an encyclopedia written by very intelligent people. If we didn't know how to spell a word, we opened up a book. It was called the dictionary.
mhm.
And
we,
now,
we would go talk to other people too.
yeah, and now we can still talk to other people. We just now can appear a little bit more buttoned up. And what's wrong with that?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Bart, I really have enjoyed being my guest today, and thank you very much. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for helping people understand that higher ed, not just the education, but the experience and how it changed your life, and whether you're a first generation guy or not. What's that experience going to be? But then again, I love what you're doing to colleges and universities, whether they're faith-based or not, helping get their message aligned with the people that they're really trying to attract. That's really cool.
Great. Thank you, Greg. It's been my pleasure.
And thank you very much. I know I say this all the time, but wow, what a great conversation. Bart's just a good, straight, solid dude. I mean, just a good person, good human being, man of faith or not, you can just see that he's locked in to helping people become better people. He's a faith-based man, so we chatted a little bit about servant leadership, and you got his take on that. I don't know that everyone really understands where servant leadership started, and whether you believe in Jesus or not, not my business. But to serve first and lead second is something that Greg Aden, would always ask you to do, and I think Bart picked up on that a lot. Two really cool books. Chasing Mission Fit, Higher Education Marketing, and then Know What You Don't Know. And both of those books will be available on Amazon from him. AI Junkie, we talked a little bit about AI there at the end. And again, think about it as a tool. Think it as a person that you trust and they trust you and you're simply asking for help. And what I got out of that particular conversation was move past fear into courage and curiosity. Now, where have you heard curiosity before? Right here on Servant Leadership Podcast all the time. What did you do when you were 3, 4, 5 years old? You ask why. Why did you ask why? Well, that's the only question you knew to understand something. So why aren't we more curious today? And oh, by the way, courageous. One of my favorite words. Courageous Conversations webinar. We have them every second month. So if you're interested in becoming a better leader, stay tuned to this podcast more often. See me on adenleadership.com, LinkedIn, Aden Leadership, or Greg Aden. So again, thank you for listening. And thank you again, InteraWorks, for being there for me. We love having you as a sponsor. On the front end of this, I mentioned Effective Edge. Now I'm going to say Best Year Yet. Yes, it's an app that you can hold in your phone and help create your best year yet, your best day, your best week, your best month. No, you don't have to start in January. Start any month, and they'll track your progress. The things that you want to do that are important to you, you put into the app, you make it intentional, and stay curious and stay committed, and you'll have your best year yet. InteraWorks with Best Year Yet app. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for listening. This is Greg Aden.